Hey everyone! The Emma dress pattern will soon be available in an updated printed version. I'm wearing an Emma dress now. It has a drawstring waist, a flared skirt, and fitted sleeves. It is a cape dress, but it could be made with a self-lined bodice instead. I'll show you how to lay out the fabric and cut it out, and today I'll be using a poly spandex rib knit. I'll also be doing some fun little hacks to make it really on trend. Now let me show you some unique things about the Emma pattern. There is no bust dart, but if you line up the side seams, you will see that the front side seam is a ½ inch longer than the back side seam. That is to ease in so that you don't have to sew a bust dart. It will be very easy to sew if you pin it. The front bodice should be underneath. The back bodice should be on top. Stretch it a little bit so that it's evenly distributed. Pin it in the middle. And just remember to sew with the pins on the top side. It'll ease right in. Here is the puff sleeve that will be released as a bonus to the Emma pattern on my Etsy shop. It is the same front and back, so you don't need to worry about getting the sleeves switched. You do want to mark the center and then run a gathering stitch along the cap to ease it in. Here's the dress front, finished except for the side seams. I sewed the shoulder seams of both the cape and the bodice. I gathered the sleeves and sewed them in. I sewed the neckline with a zigzag stitch and then understitched it here. This is not through both layers. This is just through the seam allowance and the bodice. And this is a nursing front here. I overlocked the edges of the cape and sewed a narrow hem. And then for the sleeves, I sewed thread elastic, 6 rows of thread elastic here, and then did a narrow rolled hem on the overlock to finish off the ends. To sew with thread elastic, gently hand wind the thread elastic on the bobbin. Then on the bobbin case, turn the screw that controls the tension about a ½ a turn counterclockwise. That loosens the tension to allow the thicker thread elastic to feed through. Turn the stitch length on your machine to the longest length possible, then insert the bobbin and give it a try. I also did thread elastic at the top of the skirt. I did 9 rows. The first row will be hidden once it's sewn into the seam. Before I trimmed the ends, I did a very short stitch across the ends here to keep the thread elastic from pulling loose, hopefully. And I can trim off all that extra elastic. And now for the part that I have not done before, and that is to pin it to the dress and sew it together. So I will give it a try. I've never done this. Now I'll do the back the same way. Here's the back bodice, the back cape, matching centers, and the back skirt. I did this before sewing the side seams because it seemed easier to work with one section at a time rather than doing the side seams of the skirt and the bodice beforehand and then doing the whole thing. But that means I will have to match up the seams and the thread elastic as best I can when I sew the side seams. Okay, here it is. I do believe that worked. I sewed exactly between the rows of thread elastic with the skirt on top, so I could see that I was sewing according to the rows there. And it stretched out the seam a bit, but after I steamed it, I thought it lay pretty nice. If I decide it needs to be tightened up a little bit here, I might run more thread elastic through the seam allowance. But I've done the front and the back. Now I'm ready to sew up the side seams of the dress, and it's almost finished.